It's never enough to just advise you on how to release something, because we have to have a conversation about why that particular muscle is tight in the first place. G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about how you can successfully release a Quadratus Lumborum muscle, or QL, but then in my opinion, it's not good enough to stop there. We need to have a broad conversation about what is asking that muscle to be tight in the first place and give you some practical things to do and stop it from coming back again. Before we get into it, obviously, if you enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful, please consider leaving a like rating down below. Then obviously, if you genuinely find this insightful and helpful, and it really is a useful video for you, please consider subscribing to the channel, but also consider leaving a super thanks donation on the video. It just helps sort of support the channel. Now, getting into this video, what we want to talk about basically is a really quick way to release a QL muscle. And again, if you're a fan of the channel, you'll know how vital a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball in this instance is in terms of specifically releasing tightness and stiffness. For anyone who doesn't know, the QL muscle, it attaches from around about the base of your rib cage into the lumbar spine, but also to the top of your pelvis. And a great place to start, so we don't miss anything, is you want to get the ball into the base of your rib cage. So not down the base of your spine yet. Place the ball in the middle. And what we want to get you to do is just lie down onto the ball. Now, when we're in this position, you'll need to roll onto your side a little bit, just so you can really gain good access to that QL muscle. What we want to get you to do here is, unlike a lot of ball-related exercises, we're not going to roll around. Again, if you're a fan of the channel, you know I'm not a fan of that technique. I don't feel like it's specific enough. It tends to gloss over a lot of issues as opposed to really get into them and affect positive change really quickly. So what I want to get you to do here is, once you've found a spot that feels a little bit tight and tender, I just want you to stay here. I want you to let the ball gently press in, again, at a depth and a pressure that you feel very safe and comfortable dealing with. Remember, again, we've spoken about this before, but your brain and nervous system has to feel safe in order to relax and release. So if you're digging in here as hard as possible, you're using a concrete block to dig in there, you can't breathe, you feel like you're really on edge, you're counting down the seconds until it's finished, you're not going to get your tissue to feel safe enough to release quickly. And the risk of you then having post-exercise or post-treatment soreness increases because your nervous system and brain are threatened. So again, it's counterintuitive. This idea that the harder, the better, it's a terrible idea in the context of getting through this as quickly as possible. So what we want to get you to do, have enough pressure on a spot that you feel is involved here. I want you to take a deep breath in. Then I want you to squeeze the muscle that you're pushing into. So tense your glutes, tense your abs, tense your back, tense everything up if you can. Hold that for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then relax and breathe all the way out. Now, this is a contract relax, or a PNF, a proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation technique. All you're doing is you're maximally contracting that tightness, which is then followed by a maximal relaxation. And it helps your brain and nervous system release that restriction. It helps it become less tender, makes it feel a bit safer, and it helps you get through this a lot faster. So you can go all the way up and down to the base of your spine, just above that pelvic rim, that iliac crest. Go looking for what you find is tender, tight, and important. It's a great way to specifically free up that QL in ways that a lot of stretches cannot. But as I said at the start of the video, it's never enough to just advise you on how to release something, because we have to have a conversation about why that particular muscle is tight in the first place. And there's two parts to this. And again, if you're a fan of the channel, you'll probably know where we're going with this. What I find clinically, your tight QL responds to joint and spinal dysfunction around that. That spinal dysfunction asks that muscle to tighten to help support some poor loading or some poor shapes and postures. So if we're not looking at the individual joints at the base of that rib cage, whether it's the 12th rib as it attaches into the base of that, into the base of the thoracic spine, or the individual lumbar joints as they go down and insert into that pelvic bowl, then we're missing potentially the catalyst for that tightness. And then if we're not having a conversation about your postural habits, the shapes that you're putting it back into, we're not potentially going to take away the cause of that spinal dysfunction and the muscular tightness as well. What we can do here is we can take that same ball, and instead of being out a little bit, pushing into the muscle, we can become a little bit more central and individualize this with the joints We can do the same thing with the foam roller as well. And what I want you to do here is, I just want you to be inside of potentially where you were with the ball. It's only very subtle. And then just move the ball down, go looking for those areas of restriction that you weren't hitting with the ball. You can put all this together. So when you're digging into the QL, make sure that you're also working on the joints at the same time. It's going to be much more time effective, obviously. And then just work all the way up and down that as you see fit. Now, with a foam roller, and again, this is a little bit more of a broader exercise that you can do. This is going to attack or influence the joints on both sides at the same time. It's going to include a lot more of the rib joints as well when you're higher up, but it just gives you a different stimulus for those, for those tissues. So the way that I like to do this, the way I like to get my patients to do this is, again, you have to do it lying down. Choose a surface that suits you better than anything else. So you can have your hands behind your neck if you want to. You can have your hands crossed, whatever works for you. Now, you've got two options here. You can start here at a level that you feel is a little bit stiff. I like to get my patients to roll over to that side a little bit, to bias that side more than the other side. And then all I want you to do here is just gently arch back over the foam roller as far as you feel comfortable. Now, obviously, if you don't have a huge amount of thoracic mobility or lumbar mobility, please have a pillow or a towel that is high enough for you to make this a comfortable shape. So if you need to be here, then have enough space filled with something to keep you here comfortably. Again, stay here and repeat the same process that you did with the ball. We take a deep breath into the roller, tense everything underneath the roller, tense your glutes up, squeeze your abs, get everything to activate. And then when you relax, you might find that you can actually drop down a little bit deeper if you see fit. And then move the roller, not the ball, sorry, the roller down a little bit lower and keep working up and down those areas to make sure that you can release that hidden restriction, that hidden stiffness beyond what you may have done before. It's easy to release a tight QL with the ball. You can obviously do those other stretches if you want to, but if you're not also having a look at the spinal joints underneath that, then you're potentially missing one of the reasons why the muscles are being asked to tighten and support and help out in the first place. So you've got to go hunting, take away those hidden restrictions if you want that tight QL to stop coming back again. And then the second point that we spoke about briefly before is that if we're not also evolving this conversation to include your postural habits, the shapes and the positions that you're in, then we're not going to solve this long term. It's going to come back at some point. The reason why I wanted to go through the ball exercise first is once you know exactly where the areas that are the most stiff and the most tight for you, we can take that information and put that into your day-to-day postural habits to see exactly where that's come from. If you know that when you sit on a couch, maybe with your legs out straight, maybe you're sitting up in bed using your phone, using a laptop, wherever the sharpest point of that curve might be is going to be where that stiffness and tightness accrues. And if that's the same segment that you're finding is creating some of that QL dysfunction or contributing to your broader low back pain, you have to make efforts to improve that if you want this to change long term. So that can be something as simple as rolling up a towel when you're sitting in the car, when you're sitting on the couch watching TV, when you're sitting at your desk at work. You've got to fill the gap that your spine is trying to fill. So try and fill that gap so that you don't lose that really nice neutral position. Sitting is just an example in this case. If you're someone who stands a lot and your job is standing related, there's every chance that you will then be standing, leaning over or bending over or leaning forwards or doing something where you are creating a little bit of a hinge point through that section of your back as well. So again, it's making sure that you can take the hinge out of your back and put it into your hips. So leaning forward, sticking your bottom out a little bit more is really crucial in trying to solve this long term. With that being said, I hope that was really helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments down below. Please consider leaving a like, subscribe. Super thanks if you think it's worthwhile. But then we'll see you in the next one. Bye.